Hey, what's up, guys? So this video is gonna basically be really who I am as a person in terms of personality. I have something written out here, and I'm drawing from a lot of information. So um, I'm trying to compress it in the most uh, basic way possible. And there might be a tangent or two, but basically this is who I am. So I'm just going to read this off. So I am blunt and fairly dominant. I have to keep tabs on how harsh I am coming across as, because I can get a little carried away with how strong I am coming across, and sometimes I'm not thinking about how something's going to affect other people. My compassion is naturally low, but because of my values, I have a lot of compassion and empathy for those who have it worse off than me, because logically I know what it means to suffer. Alright, I've been through suffering, I know what suffering is. So because of that, and I've gone on like mission trips and things like that and seen real suffering in people. So because of that, it's kind of changed in me from what I am naturally to actually caring about other people's suffering. So yeah, I am fairly competitive, but not in the traditional sense. I don't really have the mindset that I want to be better than other people, and this is due to my introversion and my openness. Um, so, um, but what I will say is that I want to do the best that I can do, and I typically push myself pretty hard when it comes to what it is that I want to accomplish. Um, Now, a lot of that is feeling things out as I'm going and saying, well, can I push myself a little bit harder? So it's not always a planning event. It's more of a it's not necessarily a planning event, but it's more of a, is this something that I can push a little bit harder in? And if I can, then I will. I am quick to forgive, even though I won't shy away from conflict. Yeah, so I typically will forgive people pretty easily, and there's been times where I've forgiven people maybe a little bit too easily. Not like you're not supposed to forgive people, but sometimes to create boundaries between yourself and other people, it's good to say, okay, I forgive you, but I'm gonna set a border here, and I haven't always been the best at doing that. So, um, I'm as I'm about as polite as most people. That's fairly average in my politeness score. Um, in my day-to-day life, I have immense problems staying structured, and there are several technical reasons for this. I don't want to get into all these reasons, but I will say, I have schizoaffective disorder, and because of that, motivation is a huge barrier for me. So I feel overall I've really stood against the odds that were against me, and I've really come to a place that I shouldn't be because, well, I would say because of the work God has done in my life, but I shouldn't be where I am today. I should be in a far worse off place, but I'm not, because God has grace on me. Um, and the other technical reasons is, I have ADHD, and I am very low in conscientiousness. That's a dynamic of Big Five. That's basically goal orientation. So my idea of goals is a little bit different, which I'm going to talk about that later. But um, there are technical reasons for why I am so unstructured. Uh, so naturally, I operate based on my own subjective framework of what I find important which is not really standard or the normal or normal. I almost always have a technical endeavor of self-expression going on in my life. It's not even an isolated incident, really compartmentalized thing for me. It's just something that basically comes out of me. Like, self-expression is a big deal to me, and it comes out of me in all sorts of ways. Like, even when I'm talking to my friends or people I know, it's like it just comes out of me, and a lot of times the passions that I have are what predominates my conversations, right? I don't really do a whole lot of small talk. I don't really talk about the weather. I don't really talk about, what's going on with me. I talk about my passions. So, yeah. I don't really approach goals the same way you are supposed to. Most people value the dollar and how to turn a profit. Since I am on SSI, Social Security Income, I don't really worry about money, but I'm always broke, right? I don't have a lot of money. It's like I'm just barely existing on the money that I have. And I have a lot of things I have to pay for, well, at least it feels like that. And I can barely manage to pay them those things because I don't make a lot of money. I don't have a lot of income coming in. I hope that changes at some point in my life, but I don't know if it will, so I can't count on that necessarily. Um, I'm working on doing things to gain an income, but my methods for doing so are non-standard. So, like, for example, like this YouTube channel, I realize it could be years before I start to make a profit on this endeavor, but it's still a goal that I have because I feel passionate about it, and it's still something I want to do regardless of if I make money doing it or not. There's also like other jobs that I've applied for that I've applied for a very non-standard role in that job, and I'm still sort of waiting on that to see how that turns out. But yeah, the point being is that I am not very organized in my goals the way I should be. I try to pioneer my own path. So I try to find my own way of doing things without worrying so much about, how should I be doing this. Uh, I am quite introverted. I am very low when it comes to enthusiasm, but I am pretty assertive. I don't get a lot of positive emotions, which makes motivation difficult. Alright, so um, there's a dynamic in the big five of extroversion and introversion, and if you're low on extroversion, then you're introverted, and if you're introverted, then you don't have a lot of positive emotions, and I typically tend to be pretty low in that, and that would be enthusiasm, and like I have like zero gregariousness. I'm like the one of the least gregarious people you will meet. I just have zero of that in me. Um, but I am the other thing is that I am typically kind of a warm person in conversation, and so that's an interesting dynamic that I'm not very gregarious, but I am warm. So um, so I don't have a lot of positive emotions to feed off of to keep me motivated to say, well, now I want to do this and I want to do this. Not to say that that never happens, because there are times where, I get on a roll and it's like, well, my room's messy and my desk is messy, and it's just like I go hog on that and I just clean everything, and, I clean everything in the house or whatever. I just go nuts with that goal setting, and that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen occasionally. And so, one of the big things about me is like if I'm interested in something, I just go crazy for it, And that's as my therapist has told it. It's like I lose sleep over this stuff, and it's interesting because it's not necessarily mania, which is interesting. It's not a mania thing; it's an interest thing, which is different. So that's very interesting because not many people operate that way. So if there, a lot of times when people get extra motivated, it's like they're dealing with mania, and they're dealing with how excited they are about a certain endeavor. For me, it's a more calm, like determined sort of thing, and it's not necessarily, it's an interest. Uh, it's an interest production rather than a emotional production, right? Anyways, I'm fairly introverted, even though okay. Where was I? I'm quite introverted. I'm very low when it comes to enthusiasm, but I am pretty assertive. I don't get a lot of positive emotions, which makes motivation difficult. I tend to be future oriented when it comes to expectations. I'm always anticipating something what is which is which is what it is. It's both good and bad, but mostly a source of anxiety for me, right? So I actually naturally in my life am a very, very anxious person. Like, I've taken psychometric tests that say, yeah, we don't expect you to be as anxious as you are, but thing is that it's so normal to me that I don't even know I'm operating under those conditions. It's like I don't even know I'm operating that way. And so, what that means is that I've had to go through a lot of therapy in order to realize that I have this anxiety issue, on a more concrete understanding of myself. And so what that means is that I've come to a place where I've learned to face my anxiety, and I've learned to, think about it. I've learned to really hone in on what makes me anxious, and how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis, through mindfulness and other things. Anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent, and I can feel myself doing that, so I want to pull myself back to the topic at hand. Let's see, where are we? I'm very good at taking things as they come. Because I have typically open expectations about things. I don't really expect things to happen. I don't really say, well, I expect this to happen and I expect that to happen, which makes me very good with certain things, and it's kind of a counter to the what would you call it? The expectations that I do have. Anticipation is like I don't expect things, but I anticipate things, if that makes sense. So, and that anticipation causes anxiety, but the expectations that anything could happen is always in my mind. So that means that I tend to be not very volatile. That's a personality dynamic that I'm pulling from in Big Five and Jordan Peterson's Big Five test. It's like understand myself or something like that. I'll try to link it in the description. Um, um, I'm just a hair more open than most people, and it's not because of my intellect. My intellect is very average, possibly a little bit lower than normal. But my openness proper, my openness subtrait of, you know, how open I am to experiences, to new things happening, is pretty high. It's moderately high, which means that, like I was talking about before, I don't really expect things to happen, but I like new things to happen. I always like to have new things happening in my life. Yeah, so that means that, and because of my conscientiousness level is so low, and my openness is fairly high, it makes me a very creative person, because I always like new stuff going on. I know I love new stuff going on. It's just I can't get enough of it. And so what that does is it causes anticipation, which releases dopamine in my brain, and serotonin levels are, go up when that happens. And so yeah. So what else I can say is, I am not really concerned with intellectualizing everything, even though I am pretty well spoken in terms of vocabulary. And, well, that's just, I also took a neuropsychological testing that I did a while ago, and in January of this year. It's now, just before Thanksgiving. And, what I found out is that, my verbal acuity is pretty good, and my reasoning is pretty good, but my processing speed and my working memory are in the toilet. They're really bad. And so my reasoning and my verbal way I come across is, well, it would be much higher if I could elevate my processing speed and my working memory. Let's just say that. And then, in terms of what my processing speed and working memory is, well, my processing speed is in the toilet at an 83, and my working memory is, in the garbage at 76. My verbal understanding of things, associations, and things like that I make are pretty high at 110, and that's a guesstimate. It could be higher, it could be lower. And then my reasoning is about at a 109. So I'm not really sure what my general intelligence level is in terms of IQ. I haven't figured that out yet. Maybe I'll do another video trying to get to the bottom of that. But yeah, so I'm predominantly concerned with my introverted intuition, which is that my personal values dictate from, which is what my personal values dictate to me. So one thing about that I'm going to make a future video on of this is, a lot of times people think, because of the way that the MBTI deals with cognitive functions, is they think that it alternates between EI, or IE, in the four predominant cognitive functions that are in your conscious brain. But, if you read Jung, which I have, and have an understanding of what he's saying, what he really advocates is that either you have one primary cognitive function and you have three unconscious functions, and if the primary is introverted, then the secondary, the unconscious functions, are going to be extroverted. Or another way of looking at it is if you have an informational source like a S or N, then you're going to have a judging function, which is going to be a T or F, and those two go together. So, for example, for me, I tend to be either NI, FI, or FI, NI, and that's because my subjective decision making is based on my values, and that's introverted, my subjective. And then I have very strong introverted intuition, even though I'm not the smartest person in the world. I still have quite a bit of intuition. Like, for example, I can see this in my dreams. Like, I have really crazy dreams that I tell to my brother, and he's like, wow, what the heck is going on with you? So, anyways, that's my video. This got way longer than I thought it would be. But anyways, I guess that means I like to talk about myself, which is sort of a vain thing to do, but what can you do? Alright, so that's what I got. Thanks, bye.